inaugural episode of the official Marvel podcast, Kevin Feige gives an update on the Fantastic Four, saying that the film is in fact a period piece, as well as sharing some other tidbits of information. Stick around to find out what else he said. I'm Brennan Sem for the New Wave Nerds. Subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. Now let's get into the news. From Deadline, Marvel's Kevin Feige says the Fantastic Four is a period piece and shares filming start date. Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige is sharing details about the upcoming film in The Fantastic Four. The film starring Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm or the Invisible Woman, Evan Moss-Backrack as Ben Grimm the Thing, and Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Got an update from Kevin Feige revealing the story will be set in a version of the 1960s. Feige said, "It is a period film, and there was another piece of art we released with Johnny Storm flying in the air making a 4 symbol. There was a cityscape in that image. There were a lot of smart people who noticed that the cityscape didn't look exactly like the New York that we know, or the New York that existed in the 60s in our world." Those are smart observations, I'll say. So here is the image to which Kevin Feige was referring. This is Johnny Storm, and then in the background we have this sort of futurist, postmodern cityscape in the background. Now, Kevin Feige has gone on to confirm that, again, this film is a period piece. It will be taking place in a completely separate universe, and the Fantastic Four team that we'll be exploring is a fully formed team. The Fantastic Four is a fully formed team in this universe with their own rogues gallery with which they are fairly familiar. Leading towards this, we have Paul Walter Hauser, who was recently cast in an undisclosed role, who many expect to play the Mole Man. This Mole Man, as well as multiple other villains, will likely appear in the opening act, setting the stage and setting the scene for the Fantastic Four, and establishing that this superhero group is in fact known in this universe. They are a known commodity, they are renowned, they are very public, and they have been saving the city for a period of time that is as of yet undisclosed. Also, cast in an undisclosed role is John Malkovich. Many assume that he will be playing the Puppet Master, another villain that would likely appear in the opening act of the film. And so the implication here is that sort of what we discussed in our previous episode talking about these castings of Paul Walter Hauser and John Malkovich, is that the opening act is going to be, a little bit of maybe a montage, but it's just going to be the Fantastic Four saving the city from these known threats, these sort of less impactful threats, these threats that are a danger to the city, but that's pretty much the extent of it. These are sort of lesser known villains. And then we have the introduction of Julia Garner's Shala Bal Silver Surfer, who is the Herald of Galactus, which increases the intensity of the conflict and expands out into a cosmological view. Now, that is pretty interesting to me, and it sort of lends credence to the theory that at the end of this, the Fantastic Four are actually going to lose. They're not going to be able to defeat Galactus. This is a villain who is multitudes more powerful than anyone that they've ever faced thus far. And so it lends, to a little bit of the rumblings that we've been hearing, that at the end of this, the universe, the world, this Earth that the Fantastic Four are set in, is actually going to be destroyed. And that is going to be what brings the Fantastic Four into the battle world, into Secret Wars, into the further Marvel Avengers projects. I kind of like that theory a lot. I think that would be really fun. That's sort of, it means it's a way to sort of merge these two universes and these two timelines in a way that sort of makes sense. And it sort of makes you definitely feel like there are stakes involved, which is something that we don't necessarily really feel in a lot of these superhero movies. And a lot of it, the threat is massive in scale, and yet, there's never any fear, there's never any worry that the heroes aren't going to prevail. There's never any real implication that the heroes are going to lose and the day is going to be lost. That's something that we haven't had quite in really all that many projects. We've certainly seen it in Avengers Infinity War, where at the end of that, the heroes lose. I think that is a really, really interesting way to end this out. You build up these characters in a way that we, begin to focus on them and really enjoy them and start to understand these iterations of the characters. And at the end, they ultimately fail. And then that sets us up in a really, really interesting place for the next Avengers movie or for wherever they seek to bring in these characters. It puts the team in a very different mindset. And I think that's something that's really interesting to me. That could serve as a really cool opposite whatever Avengers team we end up having. This is a team, or the Avengers rather, this would be a team that hasn't really seen all that much failure. This is a team that is fundamentally pretty hopeful. The only loss that they've really been handed in their career was able to be undone through the heroic actions of Tony Stark and Scott Lang and Captain America and this, that, and the other. And so I think it would be really, really interesting to have this team, which is just coming off this devastating loss. And then we have to pull them into the battle world and then presumably into the mainline MCU universe. And then you have, this team that is, it's a little bit of a fish out of water story, which is something that's a little bit tried and true. It's a little bit basic. And it's probably something that I think they would likely do with the X-Men, and so maybe they wouldn't want to do that story twice, but I think it puts us in a really, really interesting position dealing with this team that has just lost everything, and so then they have to rebuild themselves in this new world, in this new universe that is completely separate and removed from anything that they are aware of. I think that would be really, really interesting. I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with the set design here. How are they going to build out this New York that is this alternate timeline set in the 60s and yet futurist in its architecture and technology? It's very curious. I'm very excited. I think the set design is almost always something that I laud Marvel for. They do a very good job, even in Multiverse of Madness, which is a film that I didn't necessarily enjoy. The set design of these various different universes that we explore was really well done, and I really hope that they keep that going and we come up with something, or rather they come up with something that is satisfying and feels futuristic and foreign, and yet not so removed from what we know from the mainline MCU, such that when they are pulled into the mainline universe, it's not a complete culture shock. I think that would be really, really interesting. Now, as I mentioned, Feige did say some other things, so let's get back to the article here. Feige also revealed that the Fantastic Four is about to start filming, and it will start on the Monday after Comic-Con, which would be July 29th. Our director, Matt Shakman, has already moved to London, and we start filming at the end of July. Funny story, we start shooting the Monday after Comic-Con. I'm extremely excited because those characters are mainstays, are legendary pillars of the Marvel Universe that we've never gotten to play with or explore in any significant way, apart from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and a few teases before. So I messed up the whole inflection of that sentence. So I'm really excited is the gist of what he's saying. And I have to agree, I'm also really excited for this. We've discussed before about how the Fantastic Four is going to be an important moment for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Bringing in this Fox property is a massive milestone moment. As Feige alluded to, these are legendary pillars of the Marvel Universe. This is Marvel's first family. This is the comic run. This is the ensemble team that saved Marvel Comics, that brought them into the mainstream as far as superheroes were concerned. Before the Fantastic Four, they were mostly relegated to just pulp pop sort of articles. They were doing, I believe, a bunch of pirate stories and some random investigative stuff, but this was their first superhero title, and this really launched them into what we now know and love about Marvel, this massive ensemble with a crazy line, multiple different teams. We've got 1,000,001 different heroes, all with really, really interesting stories and backstories and a lot of really interesting interplay between them. So I agree, the Fantastic Four, bringing them into the MCU is incredibly, incredibly important. And it's because of that I'm both excited and a little bit nervous, right? We've discussed before how there's a lot riding on this film. but there's the potential that ultimately it is unsatisfying, right? There's been a lot from Marvel in the past that has sort of caused us to be a little bit more dour when it comes to future projects, and I'm trying to avoid, my experience with past Marvel movies coloring this movie, this project, and this film. But it is definitely hard. Never. I don't want to put too much emphasis on this, but Marvel has let us down before, and they've let us down a lot, and so it's obviously a potentiality here. But I think the studio, I think everybody involved understands how important this film is, not just from a universe perspective, but from the meta narrative perspective, right? Like, bringing in this Fox property is incredibly, incredibly important, and from the meta viewpoint, it is, again, a shifting point in Marvel. This is a team that everybody knows and loves. This is a team that everybody has been waiting for so long. And so if this ultimately does fail, I don't think it bodes well for the prospects of the MCU moving forward. Now, it is worth mentioning that Feige has said that this is the project that he is most excited for. Now, typically when he's asked that during interviews, whatever he's most excited for is whatever's next on the release schedule, right? Normally, when Secret Invasion was the next thing out, that's what he was most excited for. But now he skipped a few things. He skipped Captain America Brave New World. Not that he's, not putting his support behind that, or not that he is expecting that to fail and fail tremendously, but it's telling that this is the one that he chose to speak about when he was asked what is he most excited for. And maybe this is, there's a chance that this is marketing as well. There's always a chance that this is trying to play into this meta-narrative aspect. Perhaps he's trying to say that this is the one he's most excited for, to sort of drum up the hype for it and hopefully cause more and more people to get excited about it. But it is a little bit telling. I think there's obviously the possibility there that he's being truthful, and that this is the thing that he's most excited for, and that this is going to be the culmination of what they've been working towards since the early thousands, or since Kevin Feige was instituted, since Maisel was brought on and they wanted to start doing, their own studio productions of films. This has been a long time coming. And so there's obviously the possibility that he's telling the truth, and he is just ultimately incredibly, incredibly excited for this. I am as well, and this follows the news that Marvel will be returning to San Diego Comic-Con for another Hall H panel. I've got this article from IGN here. Marvel Studios returning to SDCC for another Hall H panel. Previous Hall H panels have brought forth massive announcements. We still don't have any official schedule announcements for SDCC yet, but we do know one major studio will be returning to Hall H. Deadline reports that Marvel Studios will be headed to the annual convention for another big presentation next month. SDCC 2024 will take place July 25th through the 28th, and as the report notes, Marvel typically has its tentpole panel in the late afternoon on Saturday, although nothing has been confirmed yet. IGN understands that the deadline report to be accurate. The news comes after a subdued SDCC 2023 with a lack of celebrity appearances and massive panels due to the writers and actors strikes that were happening at the time. Marvel skipped a Hall H panel last year, but has been known to make huge announcements at the con, including unveiling the Multiverse Saga slate at its 2022 presentation. So this begs the question, what are we going to be discussing at SDCC 2024? Presumably, obviously, we're not going to be addressing much of what is happening with Fantastic Four. Like we mentioned, filming doesn't even start until the day after Comic-Con, so it's not like there's going to be any preliminary footage revealed. It is 100%, I think it's very likely that they bring out the cast and crew, Matt Shakman, and the stars, Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Evan Moss-Backrack, and maybe even Ralph Ineson. I think it's likely that they bring them out on the stage to discuss what's going on and have a little bit of a presser for the Fantastic Four. I think that's entirely likely, but like I said, I wouldn't expect a bunch of huge news coming out from that. It's also likely that we'll see perhaps some footage from Thunderbolts or Captain America Brave New World. We may be seeing a little bit more information coming out from Agatha All Along, which is the upcoming series that everybody has forgotten about, but Marvel recently released some press images. I think it's just Agatha and a coven of witches looking over some weird door or something like that. So it's not exactly a lot, but presumably that means that they have some things to share. Presumably they wouldn't just release the one image if that's all they have. So maybe there's news coming out with regards to that. I think it's probably likely we'll see a little bit of Deadpool and Wolverine, maybe. Maybe we'll have Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman come out on stage in preparation for that film. I'm not 100% sure. But this is weird to me that they would announce to be coming back to Hall H when this is the year for, this is another D23 year. There's going to be another event going on in August 9th through the 11th. And at D23, this is obviously the Disney sort of convention. Marvel has typically made some announcements there as well. And so I'm curious why we have these two back to back. What are we going to announce at San Diego Comic-Con, and what are we going to choose to wait until D23? It's a little bit weird that you would have these two back-to-back, especially considering, as mentioned in the article, that they weren't there at SDCC 2023. They didn't go last year. And so presumably there could be some announcements coming, but it's weird to me that we would have both of these scheduled for roughly the same time period. Another announcement that I think is more than likely to be coming out of Hall H, I think we're probably going to get the subtitle for Avengers 5, right? It used to be Avengers Kang Dynasty, but as we discussed on the last episode, it was quietly renamed internally to just Avengers 5, and there hasn't been any update as to what is going on there. We don't have any real idea who the villain is, what the story's going to be. So perhaps that's something that they could release here. Presumably not the villain or the story or anything, but at the very least, the subtitle. There have been some speculation, there's been some rumors that it's going to be just Secret Wars Part 1 and Avengers 6 is Secret Wars Part 2. I hope that they don't go that route. I think that's really boring. There's been much speculation that Doctor Doom is going to be the villain in this upcoming Avengers film, and so perhaps maybe they'll have something a little bit more related to that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's really interesting. I'm really excited to see what they're going to release here. I don't know. Let me know down below. What do you guys think is going to be coming out of SDCC? Do you think we're going to be seeing, do you think we'll find out the subtitle? Do you think we'll maybe get some footage from Brave New World or from Thunderbolts asterisk? Or do you think that they're just going to bring out the Fantastic Forecast and have a little bit of a presser before they head out to London to begin filming? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But as always, we will keep you apprised as more information becomes available. Subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. We'll be back here tomorrow with a brand new news segment, and I'll see you guys then.